Welcome to the Perry's Prayer Warriors Bible Study. This week we have a special treat as Jerry focuses in on the Shechinah glory of God. Take it away, Jerry.
Okay, we was talking about the Shechinah glory of God. And last week we talked about that, said it was the visible manifestation of the presence of God. And I thought, man, I'm onto something here. And I got to studying through this even more this week, and I found out that there's more instances than what I had recorded, that I thought I had all the instances down, but they're called theophanies. Theophanies. Thank you very much. Theophanies. And it's the difference, the best I can tell, is because they both have the same exact definition. Okay, the theophany or the Shechinah glory. The only thing I find different is in the reference to the Shechinah glory is that it is usually present on two things. One, with darkness around it, not just it, but around it. And also, it is the word Shechinah means he causes to dwell. So the difference is that now you go through all this stuff and, it's kind of like, I agree with this one, but I don't agree with this one. I agree with this one. It's like the definitions are not, to me, exact. Okay. So when I describe something that may be the Shechinah, if it's the theophany, then don't worry about it. It's God's presence or his vision of his angels, okay, that he's given that to. That all said, that we'll go through it with that in mind. It's kind of interesting because I started looking at all the different references, and all of a sudden there's hundreds and hundreds of references, but they're not all the Shechinah glory. Okay, so we're starting out. Went through last week. The first instance we said was in the Garden of Eden, but you brought up the fact that in verse 2 of Genesis chapter 1, it talks about the Spirit was hovering over. Well, that's the presence of God. And I would go with that as being, now, did anybody see that? No, because no one was created by that time. But still, he was there in his presence, whether we could see that, whether the shining glory was there or not, who knows? He was there, so I would assume it would be. So we talked about the first one was in the garden, okay. We talked about the first one was when we talked about the manifestation. He's walking. God is coming in the cool of the evening. When? After they've sinned, after they've done it. Now it talks about he's walking around going, "Hey guys, where are you?" Because he must come every evening and talk to them, and they're not there. They're hiding. They're hiding because they now know they sinned. Okay, and when they knew that, they didn't want to be in his presence. Okay, just the thought of being in the presence of God, knowing that you've sinned, is something was what was going through their mind. But then the next one was in chapter 3, verse 23 and 24, was in the fact that they were saying, okay, now that you've done that, you might actually try to eat from the tree of life, and that would not be good. Okay, because then you're going to live forever, but you're a sinner like that. So we're not going to have this right now. So I'm going to guard it. I'm going to put on the east side. I guess that was the only entrance in and out of Eden. On the east side, I'm going to put some cherubims up there with flaming swords. That's the Shechinah glory again. The fire, the darkness around it, the darkness in it that encompassed that time Eden because of the sin that they brought into the place. That now the flaming swords, the Shechinah glory, is going to protect them from going back into it. Okay. The next event that I had recorded was the Abrahamic covenant. When somebody made a covenant, you made a sacrifice, birds, animals, whatever, and you split them in half, put them on both sides, and both people of the covenant walk through it. Okay. Well, on the Abrahamic covenant, it is God's covenant to us, not our covenant back to him. So he's the one that keeps it, not us. So it's unconditional. No matter what we do, he's going to keep his part of it. So the animals are cut in half. They're laid to the side. And it shows here a pot and a torch walk through it. That's God at night in the dark walking through this while Abraham was to the side. But it's God doing it, not us. So that makes it an unconditional time. That's one of his Shechinah glory type deals. This is when the angel of because they were talking later on, we were talking about the angel of the Lord, and that was the presence of God. Because usually when it said the angel of the Lord, they really meant Jesus pre-incarnate. Okay, because it's only angel of the Lord is only used in the Old Testament. So it's a pre-incarnation of Jesus, with the Shechinah glory around. Hagar and Ishmael are together at the riverbank, and she's all upset and sad. And the angel of the Lord is coming by and says, don't worry, I'm going to take care of you. You're going to be you're going to have a son. He's going to be as wild as a donkey. I'll read it. It's verse 12. The angel of the Lord is describing who her son's going to be. What it's going to be like. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will be against him. That's what they're talking about right here. That's where the Islams came from, Ishmael. Mm-hmm. He's a wild donkey. Okay, and his hand will be against everybody. And look what's happening right now. They're talking to everybody, and everybody will be against him. That's throughout history. That's been always the case going on. Anyway, but it doesn't reference the dwelling of the Lord. So, but it was a time when the angel of the angel of the Lord came and spoke. So there was a Shechinah glory type event there. Then you go to the next event, and this is in the burning bush. And it says the angel of the Lord, which is Christ again. And it's one of the most recognized. If you say burning bush, probably 80% of the people in the world would know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't agree with it. They wouldn't understand it, but they know the event happened. I love that part. There's so many things that people know things, and some of them will say, "Oh yeah, it really didn't happen," but it's a neat story. But they all know about it. Okay, and it's God sitting there, saying, "Here's who I am." Okay, and now Moses was 80 at that time. He was 40 when he left, 40 after he stayed with Jethro and the family and married, and now sees the burning bush go back. So he's 80 years old when he got to see this. So then, after that, there was in Exodus also when they're going through it, and they've come through, and they're now they've become a nation, and they've got the tabernacle, and they're going to have the fire in the front and the smoke there, and occasionally the fire right towards the front of that. When the Egyptians were just about to overtake them, the fire moved back to the back and said, "Excuse me, no, you can't come through. Do not pass. I'm protecting my people." But now you got to understand, this flame is guiding them for 40 years through the wilderness. Other nations know what's going on. They've got a God that shows himself. Can you imagine? And it talks about different places there, the fear of the other nations, knowing that their God is present. Our God we see in the stars. We just believe they're there. But their God is there. Can you imagine the feeling they had? And to an extent, I would imagine the Jews had a proudness. I don't know how you say it. We've got this God. You don't? And that's part of the reasons why early on it talks about how the Jewish people were supposed to tell the Gentiles about the faith. I'm not going to do that. Then they'll be like us. That's a dumb thing to do. We're not about to tell them, because then we won't be special. Then at Mount Sinai, Moses was called by God to come up to the mountain. When he was called to come up there, the people all saw this. He's got a mountain here, and there's all this stuff going on. And that was in Exodus 19, 16 through 20. So not just Moses, but the 2 million folks with him, the 2 million other Jews, saw what was going on. They see the Shekinah glory of God. Okay. And then in chapter 20, verses 18 to 21, it says that they saw this, and they're so afraid because they realize that's God. We're not. If he wants to just vaporize us, he can. So we don't want to talk to him. You, Moses, you go do it. We're gonna sacrifice you to go be the one. You go up there and talk to that guy. We don't want to do it. It's too scary for us. And so they go, okay. So he goes up there. And then, of course, when he's coming down with the Ten Commandments, the first and second time, and all the things that are going on, that's the Shechinah glory of God too. We're going to talk about some more of that in a minute. Well, in chapter 34, 29 and 35, it talks about the manifestation of the glory of God was on the face of Moses, had a veiled face. Okay, later on, we're going to find out that there are some issues with the fact that as they got farther and farther from that incident, that the glory that was reflected off of Moses was fading, and they kept the veil on so that they wouldn't see the fading of it. At first, they kept it on there because it was too bright, too much to endure. Now, the thing is all the commentaries were saying Moses didn't have the Shechinah glory. He had the reflection of the Shechinah glory. Okay, it was too bright for them to look at as a reflection, much less the mountain up there and all the stuff going on. It's just hard to comprehend. I don't know how we'd take it today if you walk, all of a sudden there's 2 or 3 million of us camped out in the desert, and all of a sudden the Shechinah glory of God showed up. I mean, what would you think? What's going through your mind with this brightness that is incomprehensible to us and to them too? Okay, so then we go on, and we talk about the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant in Exodus 29, 40 to 46. The purpose of it in that verse is the purpose of the tabernacle was given a dwelling place for God among his people. He wants to be, he didn't create us for the fun of it. He didn't create us to play chess with us. He didn't create us. He created us because he wants to be with us. Okay. In heaven, eventually, he will be right there with us. Okay. Until then, he keeps coming back and showing us, the best we can understand who he is, so we would know that he is doing things to get us to be with him also. Okay, so then it describes in Exodus 40, 34, 38, it describes how the cloud covered the tabernacle, and then the glory of God filled it up. Okay, so God came in and inhabited into the tabernacle. One of the things I was saying is, in the Holy of Holies, where only the high priest goes, that is so blocked off, even in the tent tabernacle, and they described, we did that a long time ago, how it is dark in there, and there's nothing in there, and they can't do anything except for the Shechinah and the glory of God is there so they can see. They can see what's going on. I thought that's kind of cool. And then in the book of Leviticus, it's talking about the Shechinah glory shows up to authenticate the law in the Holy of Holies. And it also authenticates the priesthood by fire, by when they consume. It doesn't show it as good there, but when the priest did the first offerings on the tabernacle, God consumed it with fire. So Shechinah glory, he's saying, yes, these are my guys. Okay, so he's authenticating. So it's not just showing his presence, but it's confirming things that are happening. Okay, so it's a confirmation of what's going on. Then in the book of Numbers, this is really kind of interesting. In chapter 13, 30 through chapter 14, 45, the Shechinah glory, it says, render judgment upon Israel at Kadesh Barnea, or whatever it is. When the people, after they came out through the deal, and they saw they went into the promised land, they came back out, they got the report. 10 guys said, there's no way we can do it. They'll kill us all. And God punished them and said, go traipse about the desert for 40 years. But the people revolted against the rulership of Moses. Okay. And then again, in in chapter 16, verses 1 through 50, the Shechinah glory shows up to authenticate Moses being in charge, Moses being the ruler. Okay. And what happened, I had to look that one up to see what was going on, because I thought, I don't remember that. That was in, right here. What happened was 3 of the guys, and one of the guys' name was Korah, said, hey, who are you? There's 2 million of us. Who do you think you guys are? He's talking to Moses and Aaron. I mean, what's your role in this? I haven't seen any confirmation that you're God, that you're not God, but you're the leader. I mean, forget the fact that he was the one that put a staff down and the Red Sea opened up. I mean, forget about all those things. But anyway, he comes in and says, I think that, I should get, and he went and got 250 of the priests at that time in this group of Jews as they're traveling about, and said, let's challenge this. I don't agree with them being the charge. Let's find out who really is. God says, okay, let me explain something to you. First thing he does is I'm going to open up the ground and let those 3 guys, their families, their wives, their kids, their little kids, their animals, their house, everything, boom. It says they dropped them into the earth alive and then close it up. And then the same thing happened, I think, to the 250 priests. Then a plague came upon the people, and if it wasn't for Moses falling on his face and saying, God, stop the punishment, don't do this, you're going to kill all of us. And God said, okay. 14,700, according to the Bible, died because of the plague. God saying, Moses in charge, pay attention. I mean, that's a pretty dramatic way of showing his glory and showing who's in charge. They were not trusting that God put the right guy in charge. This guy's 80 years old, he's an old man. Yeah, he said, like some of me. So he's an 80-year-old man. He shouldn't be in charge. Put a young guy up there. They didn't trust very good point. They didn't trust who God had picked as their leader. Then Numbers 20, chapter 20, verses 6 to 13. What was that one? When Moses, they'd already been complaining about the water and the food, and they struck the rock and the rock split, and enough water came out to feed the water the 2 million people. Then they complained about the food, and they got quail that would come, and if you think about that, there's like 4 or 5 million quail come twice a day in an area where there's no quail. Have you ever thought about that? There's no quail in that part of the country. Anyway, it is quail because that's real tasty. It's a treat. If you ever not ever eaten it, try it. It's really good. But anyway, but now they're complaining again. So he goes, okay, and God says, just go over there. I'll break the water. Moses says he wanted to look official, so he says, I'll pat the rock just like I did last time. Yeah. God says, do you always not do what I tell you to do? So he says, your punishment is you don't get to go to this promised land. What? He's done all this stuff. He's now close to 120 years old. He can see the promised land. He's on a hill. He can see it. He says, you don't get to go in. Sorry. Don't mess with God. It's a good thing. If he tells you something, do exactly what he says, not what you would like to for your own pride. Your own pride. Yeah, very good. For your own pride. Don't be a showman about it. Yeah. Do what I tell you to do. If it's a showy deal, do it. Like Ezekiel, when he said, act out these things. Okay. That was something he told him to do. This one, he just says, go there. I'll get the water for you. So anyway, that's when he showed up for his Shechinah glory. Here's another one that I thought was really interesting. 1 Samuel 4:21 and 22. This is a picture right here, the Polaroid, I'm sure, of Eli's daughter-in-law. She was pregnant at the time when the Philistines captured the Ark of the Covenant from Israel and brought it to Philistia. There was fear. Now, when this happened, there was fear among the Jewish people that they had lost the visible manifestation of God's presence because they felt like it was in the Ark of the Covenant. It's gone. Hey, we've lost the thing we have that no one else has. Now we're going to be like everybody else. And she actually named, she was pregnant at that time. She had a baby and she named it Ichabod. I love that name. And Ichabod means, the meaning of it is the glory has departed. That's a good name your baby. The glory has departed. Anyway, but the comments were, it had not departed. She only thought it had. Okay, it had not departed. Then so after that was Solomon's temple. Solomon built a new temple, the Holy of Holies, and the Shechinah glory of God was transferred from the tabernacle into the temple. Okay, and like Moses back when he was built the tabernacle, he says, "And Lord, stay here and dwell with us." God didn't answer him. Solomon asked the same thing: "Stay here and dwell with us," and God didn't say anything. We'll find out later what happened, but he was in the temple. So in that temple that Solomon built, God resided. So then we go to Ezekiel. Hey, we get there, and really in Ezekiel is talking about the departure of the Shechinah glory. That was the first thing. So it's going to leave. And so the first stage was in Ezekiel 9:3 and 10:4. And this was a departure, and it was from the Holy of Holies to the threshold of the door of the temple. Okay, so the Shechinah glory just moved a little bit. Okay, I'm just waiting for him to not keep sinning. Okay, then it goes into stage 2, which is the movement of the Shechinah glory with the threshold to the eastern gate. And it's the eastern gate of the temple, not of the city. Okay, that may come out later in some other, but it's an eastern gate, the eastern entrance of the temple, not the eastern of the city. So then it goes from there to the Mount of Olives, from the eastern gate, and it moved on to the Mount of Olives, the Shechinah glory. And then eventually from there, it disappeared from Jewish history, it says. The Shechinah glory was gone from the Jewish history at that point. Jewish tradition, it's so interesting. They have the Torah, but then every rabbi gets to interpret it the way that rabbi wants to interpret it. And it's kind of like we get to interpret the Bible what we see, but we have a book with a set of words. Better translations bring out more information, but it doesn't change. Okay. These guys are, and so one of the big things that the rabbis back then said was the Shechinah glory set over the Mount of Olives for 3.5 years, waiting for Israel to repent, and they didn't, so they left. That's a tradition of the rabbis talking, not necessarily what was actually, whether it happened, I don't know. After the Jews returned from Babylon, okay, and the second temple was built, the Shechinah glory wasn't in that temple. It wasn't built on it. It didn't enter it. Haggai he says in chapter 2, verse 9, he talks about the fact that the latter glory of this house will be greater than the former. Okay, well, there is no former. Okay, what's the latter glory of this house that they built, the second temple? It's Jesus. He's walking around. That's where he turns the tables over. That's where he preaches. That's where he walks around, is in that. So, and it says, one of the comments says, the fact that the temple was destroyed in AD 70 necessitates that the fulfillment of Haggai's prophecy had to be before that time, which it was. Jesus. He showed up. He was there. The latter glory, Jesus was in person there, was greater than the former. There was nothing there. Now we shift to the New Testament. Okay, so here we go. Up here to the shepherds, right? It's in Luke 2, 8 through 9, I guess it says, and the glory of the Lord shone around them. This was to announce the birth of the Messiah to the shepherds. Okay, so No, but think, remember, Shechinah glory, the darkness, the dark of the sky, and then all of a sudden these angels show up. It's hard to comprehend a shepherd out in the fields at night, and all of a sudden, well, maybe it could be or something, angels show up to sing to him. I
I
mean,
can see why they were terrified.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they're terrified. Of course they are. 'Cause, oh no, this is it. We don't know who you guys are, but this isn't good. It tells them who they are. In Matthew 2, 1-12. So I want to go to that and read this one.
Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. So they said to him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you shall come a ruler, who will shepherd my people Israel. Then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search carefully for the young child, and when you have found him, bring back word to me, that I may come and worship him also. When they heard the king, they departed. And behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. And when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then, being divinely warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed for their own country another way.
Number of different things in that. In verse 2, it says, For we saw his star. We're not seeing his star. We saw his star. So his star went out. So that's why they went into Jerusalem and said, We followed this star all the way here, and now we don't know where to go. So they go in and ask the ruler, where's this new king going to be born? He didn't know anything about it, so they start looking for the deal. And it says in verse 9, when it comes out, it says, and having heard the king, they went on their way to, and lo, the star which had been seen in the east. Mm-hmm. So now it comes back on. Oh, okay. And then they go along, it says, and in verse 10, and when they saw the star, they rejoiced. When they saw the star stop and shine down in light. Okay, so think of all those things right there. So first, the star appeared and disappeared on 2 different occasions, okay? The star led them from the east to the west, and then from the north to the south, because from Jerusalem down to the south there. And then the star stood over the house where Jesus was. Remember, he's probably 2 years old about this time. Mm-hmm. Stood over the house. The comment was, it was God's privately owned star in a sense that was not true of any other star. Mm-hmm. There's no other star that could put a beam on a house in a city, in a certain area, directional light, right down on that one and say, that's the house he's in. Yeah. We don't have stars like that. Okay. And so that star is the one that guided them over there. That's where that's the Shechinah glory of God shining down on them. Yes. That's my son down there. He's right there. Not that house, that house right there. And how's the star's got to be up in the sky ways. And did other people see the star? There's so much about that star that's just pretty wild. So there's so much involved with that star. So that star had the Shechinah glory he's showing the presence of God, and they're going, it's a baby. What?
Not just a baby.
Well, I know, but they didn't know that. They knew he was a king, but it says this baby. Well, that's what they were guided there for. You think back, how would they even know to even look for that? It was probably because they probably looked at some of the writings of the Old Testament, which they read, which the people here were not reading. Mm-hmm. They'd already got too sophisticated to read their scriptures. Okay, so going on in John chapter 1, verses 1 through 14, and read verse 14 is the one I wanted to read.
And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth.
Yeah, so his glory to come and dwell among us. That's the Shechinah glory that we've been talking about. There's I'll read this so I don't get it wrong because it's kind of interesting, but it says the parallel with the Old Testament should not be missed. In the beginning of its history, the Shechinah glory appeared and disappeared before making a permanent abode in the tabernacle in the temple. It then departed from the Mount of Olives. In the New Testament history, the Shechinah glory first appeared and disappeared, then came in a more permanent form in the person of the Messiah, abiding with Israel for an extended period of time. Later, two departed from the Mount of Olives after a ministry of 3.5 years. So the what happened in the Old Testament is happening now in the New Testament. Then we go to the Transfiguration. The appearance of a cloud, a voice of God speaking out of the cloud. This is the same thing that occurred on Mount Sinai. Okay. And again, the reflection is the reflection of the Jesus is the sun, if you will, and the people around him are the reflection of like the moon. So then in the New Testament, also, we look at in 2 Corinthians 3, verses 12 through 18. Somebody read that.
Therefore, since we have such hope, we use great boldness of speech, unlike Moses, who put a veil over his face, so that the children of Israel could not look steadily at the end of what was passing away. But their minds were blinded. For until this day the same veil remains unlifted in the reading of the Old Testament, because the veil is taken away in Christ. But even to this day, when Moses is read, a veil lies on their heart. Nevertheless, when one turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. But we all, with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord.
We should reflect the Shechinah glory, and it's not through our faces necessarily, but through who we are, through our person, through our actions. That's how we today reflect the glory of the Lord, okay, so that other people will see it, all right? And it's also saying that the Jews, of course, don't do this. They're not seeing anything. They don't know what's going on because they're not studying the scripture, okay? And this is in the New Testament. They should have studied. They could see the same thing in the Old Testament. They won't do it. So each individual person has the opportunity to understand and to accept. That's with everybody, but the nation itself doesn't until the last 3 days of the tribulation. Okay, then we go into the book of Acts, Pentecost. You know, here is a personal presentation of the glory of God in the form of the little flames above the heads of what's going on. Fire, the excitement of the Lord is there, okay? Also in the New Testament is, of course, on the road to Damascus. What are you doing to my people? He gets so upset with them. He says, I'm sorry, what? Is it you? Yeah, it is me. The Shechinah glory is falling down on him to where he's blinded. He talks to him, and that's when he is converted.
And just before this, at the stoning of Stephen, where his face shone.
Steve, why was his face shining? Because God was looking down on him. You know, and the thoughts going through Paul's mind. I mean, just, you know, what is going on here? It's a great example of what can happen when people listen and find out who Jesus is. You know, I mean, look at Billy Graham. He was nobody until. And then we go on into Revelation, and this final in the Revelation, the final fullness of this glory, the final display of the Shechinah glory, is to commission John to write the book of Revelation, and to bring the scriptures to a close. I've told you everything that happened and is going to happen. You don't need any more. There's nothing you can add to this, and please don't add or subtract. We're not be a good point either. Now we're going to look at it in prophecy. Okay, so in the Great Tribulation, somebody read Revelation 15:8.
The temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power, and no one was able to enter the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were completed.
So this is the only mention of the Shechinah glory of God during the tribulation. Okay, because he's not there. He's not there. But when the final 7 bowl judgments are coming, the Lord filled up the temple and said, no one can come in here till these guys are done. And when they're done, then it's going to go into the millennial reign. Okay. Then we have the second coming of Christ. Duh. That's going to be kind of a big event. He's going to come out like, they say, everybody's going to know when he comes. When he comes back to the earth, everybody's going to know it. Now, is that because the image will be everywhere, or because we all have TVs around the world? I don't know. People say all kinds of things. It can be any way God wants to make it. He can do anything he wants to. But when he comes back, it's going to be the Son. And then actually that was in Matthew 16:27. But in Matthew 24:30, it talks about the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the heavens. So before he comes back, the sign's going to appear in the heavens that he's getting ready to come back. Then we'll talk about the millennium. In the millennium, it says there will be really 5 manifestations of the Shechinah glory, all kind of simultaneously. The first one is in Ezekiel 43:7, which went that when he goes into the visible manifestation of the Holy of Holies during the millennial kingdom. We're going to see that it's not just, this is what we were talking about last week, it's not just in the Holy of Holies, it's not just in the temple, it's not just in the temple compound, it's not just in Jerusalem, it's going to be all of Israel. It's going to have the Shechinah glory. The rest of the world still exists at this point. The rest of the world sees this glowing in a way that they're going, what? Now at this point, when they see this glory during the millennium, everybody's a Christian. Okay. As it starts out. Mm-hmm. As it goes along, they're not all Christian, but they'll still see that glory back in Jerusalem. The other one is there's going to be, not only will the people in Jerusalem, it shows a picture of them having a great time, okay, because this is the millennium. That's going to be a great time. But it's saying that Israel will have a wall of fire around it. Shechinah glory of God is going to be around Israel. Okay, if what we're saying is during that time, God won't have we won't have a veil on. Okay, everybody will be able to see who God is. Okay, Jesus will be on his throne in Mount Zion at the temple, ruling the world. Okay, and we'll be there with him. Then the final thing in prophecy is the new order. The millennium's only going to be 1,000 years. Short period of time. Now, for some people, it takes 1,000 years to convince this is Keelan speaking. It takes, I think, 1,000 years to let the Jews understand that all the prophecies and all of the promises that God made actually come true. Okay. They're a little dim-witted, I think, but even as Christians, it will take them a while to realize that, and they will glorify in that and we talked about last Sunday about the daily, after day 8, there'll be a daily sacrifice going on as a memorial to the sacrifice that Jesus made. It's going to be going on forever. So they'll be reminded of this all the time. And then the light that would be necessary for all of us to see will be this glory of God forever. There's no more need for the sun and the moon. Whether there be stars, I don't know. That's always an interesting point, because when I talk to my kiddos, I always say, because they say, "What's it going to be like there?" And I go, "I don't know," but I said, I have a feeling that you could be unbounded. So you say, "Hey, Mom, I'll see you. What time's supper?" 6 o'clock. Okay, I'll be back by then. I'm going to go visit Mars. All right, I'm going to go out to Uranus. So I'm going to go over to Jupiter. I'm going to go to blah, 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 wherever. I'll be back by then, because we'll be able to do everything. The angels could move about instantly, and I think we'll be able to someday too.